you're listening to the Thrift Steading podcast, where we learn how to make the most of what we have so we can live simply, frugally, and to the glory of God. This is your host, Heather of Garnet Creek Farm, and today we are going to talk about the one thing nobody talks about when it comes to homesteading. But first, I'd like to introduce you to today's sponsor, schoolhouseteachers.com. With over 400 courses that you can choose from, schoolhouseteachers.com is the perfect homeschooling solution for homeschoolers on a budget. If you prefer an outdoors approach to education, you can actually find an entire section of materials on their site in the Charlotte Mason section just for you. From science to math to everything in between, you will find both online and offline based courses that you can pick and choose from with a single membership. And for a limited time, you can purchase a lifetime membership for less than $1,000. That's less than what you would pay for 1 year for one child with many traditional box companies. Many homeschoolers on a budget choose to piece together a more affordable option once they see those high price tags of box curriculum. So they might go on Craigslist or Thrift Books or eBay and try to find an inexpensive math option here or a cheaper science curriculum there. But schoolhouseteachers.com has done all that work for you. They have found materials that you can use for every subject under the sun, and you pay only one price for the entire family. And again, if you go over to their site now at schoolhouseteachers.com, you can find an option where you can receive a lifetime membership for the price that is what you would pay for a child for a year. So check out the link in the description below or visit schoolhouseteachers.com today. And now I am going to share with you the one thing nobody talks about when it comes to homesteading. At least this is something that I've never heard anybody talk about. Nobody's brought it up to me. Maybe this is something that goes on in the secret rooms of homesteading in the barns and the chicken coops that I don't know about. But what I didn't realize, and maybe I'm just naive, what I didn't realize going into homesteading was that, I don't even know how to word it, but there are so many people who have gone into homesteading, and when you are taking that step of faith and you are walking into that world, most likely you're going to have people who are against you. Not that they are upset with you or anything, but they are confused or they don't understand. They go to the grocery store, you did too, most likely, and bought everything at the store. So, we look at the progress, we look at how far technology has come. So why in the world go backwards? So a lot of times there's just that clash of interests with family, with friends, with the people surrounding us, and it becomes frustrating. So when that happens, many of us are seeking community with like-minded people. And that happens in every realm of our life, which I'm going to talk about later in the episode. But when you first jump into the world of homesteading and you are trying to find your tribe, you're trying to find your people, the one thing that we talks about are the ones that used to be in the tribe that are no longer in the tribe, that can really bring you down. And what I mean by that is we get so excited the first time we make our own soap, the first time we make our own kefir, the first time we start working in kombucha or sourdough or any of these homesteady type hobbies that we dive into, that we get excited about because we realize the benefits. We see the health benefits. We see how it can be beneficial to our family, and we get excited about it. And then we talk to somebody that we think is on board, and they might be on board with some things. And that's what I really want to hone in on today, that when you do find other homesteaders, homesteading is not a one-size-fits-all hobby or lifestyle. It is whatever you feel called to do, what your family feels called to do. And a lot of times it can be frustrating when you find your people and you're hanging out and you're learning and gleaning and exchanging ideas. And then you find out that one person, and this would be me, I'm speaking from experience, where if somebody's really excited about having goats, then they come to me and they're talking about the benefits of the goat milk and how they're going to eat all the poison ivy on their property and how it's going to be so beneficial, basically acting as a lawnmower, and they get so excited. And there was a time I was excited about that too, until I had goats. And for our family, goats did not work out well. There's many reasons. We had fencing issues. We had a time where a neighbor knocked on our door and said, "Your goat is on top of my truck." That probably cost more than our house. And so it was in the freezer the next day. And you live and you learn. And at that point, each homestead, each family has to make a decision on how they're going to move forward after they have that experience. So for us, we moved to having a Jersey cow for our source of milk instead. Then we went to Dexter's because they would eat less grass. So you learn as you go and you figure out what works for you. And what I'm going to talk about today is not to be discouraged when you're talking to people and it seems like they're discouraging you with their horror stories. And we see that when it comes to birth stories. We see that when it comes to home schooling stories. We see that when it comes to experiences with certain denominations or churches. So in every aspect of our lives, people have stories that they want to share, but they're not always edifying. And we have to remember that the edification will not always come from the community. Because if you look at the people that are within the community, yes, we share resources, we share wisdom and ideas, but everybody within the community, they're hurting too. They're struggling too. So it might not be the same struggles that you have, and it might not be the same struggles I have, but when they're going into this new world, there's fears, there's questions, there's doubts. So the point of this podcast episode is not to discourage you and tell you to just go hide in your room and just journal about everything and never talk to anybody. Although I do recommend going to the Lord in every situation because, he is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. And you're never going to find somebody that you see eye to eye with on every single subject, every single topic. And when you strengthen your relationship with the Lord, then you're able to go into the community, homesteading, homeschooling, church, whatever community that is, and you can be the one that's pouring out and not always trying to glean. That said, how do we approach this situation where we're dealing with so many hurt people, so many people that have had bad experiences? I'm going to first talk about the three that I mentioned. Okay, so we have our birth stories, right? Most of us who are listening either have given birth or you're married to a woman that has given birth. And because most of the listeners I know are families. And I don't understand. At first, I didn't understand. I do now. But at first, I didn't understand why, when I was pregnant, people weren't just lining up to give me encouragement and say all these wonderful words of blessing and wisdom and how wonderful everything is going to be. And, you would hear how terrible things were and how long, I could probably tell you, several of my friends how long their labor was and exactly how it went because I've heard it many times and they've heard my story many times, and it's just human nature. And we just talk about the pain and the difficulties because that's what sticks with us. And so what I want to do is hone in on those things that stick with us so we can actually use those pain points in our life, turn it around and use it to help other people. So when somebody comes to us and they say they want to have goats. And of course, this is something I need to work on. I need to make sure that my face is not showing all this expression of disgust. But I have to remember that their living situation is completely different than mine. They might have much better fencing. They might have more patience. They might have older children. I had 3 children under the age of 5 at the time that I had the goats. Now we have a 90-foot greenhouse, multiple cattle. We have a lot more, obviously, than what we started with. But of course, I wouldn't recommend that to somebody with a 6-month-old, and a 3-year-old, because it's just a different dynamic, a different world. And so I think the best thing for us to do is first look at the difficult situations that we've been in, whether it was a birth story or a homesteading story or a homeschooling story, and learn how to turn that around and bless someone. So let's look at the example of the goats. If somebody is coming to me and they're all excited about goats, all I can do is ask, what kind of research have you done? What farmers have you visited? Who do you know that has had goats? And just gently ask them why they're excited about it. And then the biggest part of this scenario would be not offering unsolicited advice. Now, most likely they're coming to me because I'm a homesteader and they probably do want my advice. But most of the time, people are coming because they just want to talk. So we need to be there to listen. And so if somebody comes to me about goats, I'm just going to sit there and I'm going to listen, and I'm just going to ask questions just to kind of gauge. If maybe they're still kind of on the fence, I could share if they ask. So if they ask, what has your experience been with goats? Oh, have you ever had goats? Then I can gently share the positives first and then get into the negatives, because there were positives. They did eat all of our poison ivy and they cleared out an area that pretty much was unusable for many years. They cleared it out and we're able to use that area now. The kids have a zip line going through the area, and then we graze some of our cattle there occasionally, and it was completely a wilderness that we couldn't even use. So I would focus on providing the benefits first, and then maybe just make a list of 3 things that I felt like were not beneficial. So, yeah, goats were beneficial. They were good, but we didn't have proper fencing. So, yeah, I definitely would highlight or suggest that you have proper fencing in place before you get them. If you're milking them, you just want to make sure that your schedule will allow for that, that your kids possibly are in sports or, different church commitments or whatever that might hinder you from milking X amount of times a day. So, there's a lot of advice I could give, but I would hone it in and just give some positive feedback and then your advice. Because I don't want to discourage the new homesteader that is excited. And the reason I say that is because just this past week, I met a new mom. When I say new mom, she had a 2-year-old, her first child. And when I asked her how parenting was going, and I didn't know her very well, but when I asked her how parenting was going, she flat out said, you have no idea what it's like until you have a kid. Not me. She knows I have multiple children, but she's saying in general. And I think a lot of us, if not all of us, had advice for people who had kids before we had kids. I know I did. I know people did for me, and it always frustrated me. And I think she was realizing the same thing, that until you walk through it, you have no idea. And that goes with everything in life. And when we're looking at the new homesteader, we need to realize there's some things that they're just going to have to walk through, that no matter how many years of wisdom we have, we're not going to be able to impart that into their lives. Number one, unless they ask. And two, some things just have to be walked through. And we just need to be there to hold their hand and help them when the animals die. We're counting the chickens before they hatch and, whatever animal that might be. So we just need to be there when the crops don't come through that year. And that was supposed to be their first year that they were going to be selling at a CSA or a market. And everything just completely got destroyed by thrips or rain or whatever you have. So we need one another. We need each other as a community. Another example of where this happens often would be in the homeschooling community. Most of you I do know homeschool. And again, a lot of us go in with so many ideas and so many hopes and dreams. And then people will just share, oh, yeah, I had to pull my kid out in high school because I just couldn't teach high school. I mean, they could be sharing all kinds of horror stories like, oh, I taught my kids and pulled them out, but they still went wayward. Or, you hear the horror stories and you wonder why. Why are they sharing these with me? And so my encouragement is to learn how to not be that when we're older, but also to recognize that there are many people who are hurt out there and that we can encourage them when they come to us with their pains, when they come to us with the things that they're not doing anymore. And that is the biggest thing that nobody talks about when it comes to homesteading, are the people who used to grind wheat and they no longer are grinding wheat every day. They used to have X amount of head of cattle and now they don't. It doesn't mean that they failed. And I feel like when the newer ones come in and are sharing what they're hoping to do, what they are doing, and they're energetic and excited, that the ones that went through it and are no longer doing certain aspects of homesteading or homesteading at all, they often feel like they were failures and they might not want to associate with you because of that shame and guilt. And so my encouragement is wherever you are in your homesteading life cycle, wherever you are in that world, go into a homesteading community as an encourager. So if somebody in your co-op used to grind wheat every day and get up every morning and do all the things, and they're no longer doing it and you're starting to get into it, you can just encourage them. You can offer to give them some bread if that's still something of benefit to them that they would want. Or you could just drop the subject altogether and try to find common ground with them in something else, and just maybe not talk about the bread all the time and all the excitement that you have in it, because they have been there and done that, and they may have enjoyed it, they may have not. Whatever the reason for stopping, we all change in life. Most of us, if not all of us, are not the same people that we were 10 or 20 years ago. We have different philosophies, ideologies, habits, hobbies. Everything will not stay the same because we're constantly educating ourselves, we're constantly learning, and we're constantly adapting to like the environment that we're in. So what I'm doing right now, I might not be doing when my kids leave the house, and what I did 10 years ago does not look anything like what I'm doing right now. And so the important thing is to realize that homesteading is not a one size fits all world. There are so many aspects to it. We need to encourage one another, help one another, and realize that every individual is precious to the Lord, and precious should be precious to us. And we can learn so much from what they have been through. And instead of us trying to go in and seeing what we can offer them or what we can teach them, let's go and just be a hand to hold a prayer partner, a friend, a shoulder to cry on. Let's just be that for the people, and those people might be us one day, or it might be us right now. So thank you for listening to the one thing nobody talks about when it comes to homesteading: the hard things, the difficult things, the people that have left, the people that have downsized, the people that are no longer doing what we're excited about. They might share some things that are not encouraging, but we're not going to let that bother us. We're not going to let that discourage us, and we're not going to let that be us when we get older. Instead, we're going to encourage and uplift and be a strength to those in the homesteading world. So thank you, and we will see you next time on the Thrift Steading Podcast.